Discover the amazing truth. She asked him to pretend. Little did she know he was a billionaire. In the quaint town of Maplewood, where sunshine dances on the worn shingles of her modest home, Sarah, a 32-year-old nurse, faced the daily grind of long shifts and endless responsibilities. As a dedicated single mother, juggling her son Ethan's school projects and the demands of the hospital, the pressure weighed heavily upon her shoulders. The bills loomed large, shadows of anxiety drawing tighter around her heart, especially when it came to Ethan, her 12-year-old, with aspirations that extended far beyond their little house. Dreams that she often felt ill-equipped to nurture. Every hour, the rhythmic beeping of machines at work reminded her that life was fragile, just like her finances. Her relatives' whispers about her single status lingered in her mind, cutting into her confidence. Was she enough for Ethan? Would she be able to provide the life he deserved? Just as she thought things couldn't get any more challenging, she met Jack, a cheerful handyman who offered more than just repairs to her home. As he scraped the peeling paint away, laughter bubbled between them, weaving a warmth into the fabric of her weary life. She found herself drawn in by his bright spirit and his easy way of being. He sparked something within her that had dimmed long ago. But temptation came with a weighty cost. Torn between the fears of judgment and the desire for stability, Sarah made an impulsive decision. As the family reunion approached, she felt the tremors of fear at the thought of facing her family alone. "Jack, would you be my pretend boyfriend?" The words spilled out before she could reel them back. His spark seemed to ignite her fragile resolve, a way to shield herself from whispers, a way for Ethan to see a semblance of normalcy. What harm could there be in a ruse? He agreed, but Sarah knew the facade she was setting up was fraught with uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The anticipation of the reunion was a storm brewing on the horizon, set to clash with the fragile peace she had found. The familiar faces of her family would bear down with judgment. And amid the chatter and laughter, what would happen when the truth of Jack's identity crept into the open? She braced herself for the moment, for the scrutiny that would surely fall upon them. Would he still stand beside her, or would his true self shatter the fabricated life she had constructed? As the day arrived, the reality of her family's expectations pressed in like a vice. It gnawed at her gut with dread, a chorus of doubts yelling that she was setting herself up for failure. Soon, the laughter and joy from the gathering turned into a chaotic unraveling, triggered by a text message left unguarded. Suddenly, Jack's billion-dollar secret was laid bare, his identity shattering the mirage they had created. Gasps echoed in the air, leaving Sarah to navigate the harsh judgments, worry for Ethan's response, and a furious need to defend both herself and Jack. In that moment of chaos, as eyes turned accusatorily toward them, Sarah felt the world constrict. She could sense the narrative shifting. Would they ever understand the authenticity of love over status? Would they ever see beneath the surface? Jack stood tall beside her, not the phony her family accused, but a man of purpose and warmth who had unearthed the best of her. But the internal conflict churned like a storm. Could this family ever accept their reality? Would she crumble under the weight of their expectations, shackled by the very judgments she'd tried to escape? As Jack met her gaze, the raw tension between them crackled, igniting potential paths they hadn't considered. What would it take for Sarah to break free from the chains of her family's perceptions? As the silence settled thick around them, the answers felt hauntingly elusive, setting the stage for a reckoning neither could foresee. The stakes had never been higher, and the frailty of hope hung delicately in the balance. Sarah's heart raced, a cacophony of emotions swirling within her. Around her, whispers buzzed like angry bees, lives reduced to gossip. What had she done? The weight of her family's stares bore down like a heavy fog, smothering her resolve. She had sought refuge in a charade, but with Jack's identity revealed, the comforting illusion had unraveled. Jack took a step closer, his presence a barrier against the judgmental eyes. He reached for her hand, grounding her in that moment. "We can explain," he said softly, his gaze unwavering. But Sarah wasn't sure if words could mend the fraying threads of their carefully constructed story. The tension stretched taut between them, a fragile string on the verge of snapping. Ethan, wide-eyed and bewildered, stood a few steps behind her, caught in the crossfire of curiosity and concern. His young mind struggled to make sense of the rippling shockwaves. "Mom, is everything okay?" he asked, confusion mingling with fear. In that moment, the world shifted again. It wasn't just about her or Jack. It was about Ethan's perception of his mother and her choices. Sarah knelt down, meeting Ethan's gaze. "Honey, it's okay." Her voice faltered as she caught sight of the uncertainty reflected in his eyes. What could she say? That everything would be fine, or that this was the beginning of a mess she never intended to make? "Jack is a very good friend," she managed, aware that the omission felt like a betrayal of the truth they had formed together. "Good friend, huh?" Ethan's slight smirk betrayed his skepticism, the innocence of his age wrestling with the complexities of truth. As the family closed in, Sarah felt the urge to retreat. The laughter and warmth that filled the room earlier morphed into scrutiny and skepticism. "Did you think we wouldn't find out?" her sister Barbara sneered, arms crossed condescendingly. The confrontation felt like a painting hung on a wall. The frame had been beautiful, but the composition now felt grotesque. "Sarah, is this really the kind of man you want in Ethan's life? Out of all the people?" Her brother chimed in, his voice sharp like a blade. With every accusation, Sarah's resolve began to simmer. This wasn't just about Jack. This was another layer of her fight to redefine her identity. Their words stabbed like arrows, meant to wound, but instead, they ignited something fierce within her, a surge of defiance. She had spent too many years suffocated by her family's expectations. This time, she refused to cower. "Enough," she declared. Her voice had transformed into something fierce, a mother bear protecting her cub. She stood tall, meeting each gaze with a newfound determination. "Jack is not just a man. He's someone who respects me and loves Ethan. He's shown me a light I didn't think was possible. Isn't that worth something? Don't I deserve happiness, even if it doesn't fit your mold?" The silence was deafening, even as whispers continued to swirl. Jack's hand tightened around hers, a gesture of solidarity that bolstered her confidence. For too long she had measured herself against her family's yardstick, but now she was ready to craft her own. Her professional life in nursing had equipped her with skills to care for others, but it was in this moment that she needed to care for herself. But the confrontation had left unanswered questions swirling within her. Was this steadfast unity between her and Jack real, or just born from circumstances? Would her family ever understand, or was a deeper conflict about to surface? As Ethan's eyes scanned her face, searching for reassurance, Sarah felt the gravity of her choices weighing in the delicate balance between love and acceptance. What truths lay ahead that she had yet to confront, both in her family's hearts and her own? The horizon before her darkened with complexity, indicating a deeper reckoning was looming. If she could break free of her family's perceptions, what might she truly become? The moment hung heavy with unresolved tension as Sarah took a breath, grounding herself in the chaos swirling around her. She couldn't ignore the curious glances from family members, nor could she dwell on her brother's harsh judgment or her sister's disdain. But within her heart, she felt a flicker of liberation. If she could confront her family's views, perhaps she could redefine herself in light of them. "Let's go into the other room," Jack suggested, a calculation in his tone. He strode forward, leading Ethan by the hand as he gently tugged Sarah away from the pressing crowd. She followed, feeling a mix of gratitude and apprehension. Jack was trying to shield her, but she knew they had to face the music eventually. In the quieter confines of the den, the atmosphere shifted. It was a stark contrast from the family gathering. Here, their voices felt muffled, and the noise of judgment faded. Sarah turned to Jack, his expression resolute. "We need to talk," Jack said, eyes searching hers for understanding. "About what?" she replied, her voice flat. The knot of uncertainty tightened in her stomach. Did they need to dissect their relationship, or was this about confronting the judgment they just received? "About everything," he replied gently, voice low and steady. What was everything? The lies they had told, the feelings they had unknowingly cultivated, the fear that lingered of losing everything she had ever known? "I can't keep being someone I'm not, Jack," she admitted, vulnerability creeping in. "I'm a nurse. I care for people, I heal lives, but I've always been confined to who they think I should be. I tried to play that role, hiding parts of me as if they were weaknesses." "Then don't hide." Jack leaned in closer, intensity returning to his gaze. "Your family can't dictate your happiness. You have to step into your truth, even if it scares you. His words struck a chord, resonating deep within her. Jack wasn't just a supportive figure, he was a catalyst for change. With every conversation they had shared, she felt like she had been on the precipice of discovering herself. But could she leap into this unknown territory? Ethan interjected, his youthful innocence radiating from him. Mom, do you really love Jack? Like, for real? Not just for pretend? His question shattered the heavy air around them, forcing Sarah to confront the raw honesty that resided in her heart. Yes, Ethan, I do. And it's terrifying, she confessed. Jack's face lit up, but there was a seriousness to his expression. You have to decide if you're willing to fight for this. You know this could mean losing family, losing the comfort of what you've known. The implications of his words began swirling in Sarah's mind. Those words echoed her fears, but they also ignited a fire within her. For years, she had prioritized the expectations of others above her own happiness. Her role as a caregiver had often left little room for her own desires, and it was about time to reclaim her narrative. I'm ready to fight, she said, her voice firmer, an ember of determination glowing brighter. But the stakes just became significantly higher. What if? Don't second-guess yourself now, Jack interrupted softly. You know what you need. She nodded, feeling the walls that had once confined her start to crumble. To free herself from the opinions of others was no easy task. It would demand courage, grit, and authenticity. But what awaited her on the other side could be liberating. Standing at this juncture, she felt an exhilarating mix of fear and exhilaration. The path ahead was uncertain, but she took solace in knowing that she was not alone. As they rejoined the family in the living room, Sarah's decision solidified. This confrontation was just a small part of a much larger battle. With each step, she grew more resolute about redefining her boundaries and her story. But as Jack placed a reassuring hand on her back, a sudden wave of doubt rushed through her. What would her family's reaction be now that she was ready to push back? The promise of conflict loomed over them like a storm cloud, raising the question, would she have the strength to withstand it? As they stepped back into the living room, the faint sound of laughter and conversations enveloped them, but the air felt charged with anticipation. For a moment, Sarah lingered in the doorway, taking in the chaos that once served as her life. The warmth, the familiarity, juxtaposed against the icy grip of uncertainty that now surrounded her. Jack's presence behind her was grounding, but the weight of her family's judgment pressed down like a heavy mantle. Several heads turned as they entered, and Sarah could feel her sister's steely gaze drilling into her. Emily's expression was a complex blend of concern and skepticism. She wasn't the type to hide her feelings, and the way she raised an eyebrow told Sarah all she needed to know. This was only the beginning. Where did you two run off to? Emily's voice cut through the din, sharp and probing. Just had a moment, Jack answered, his tone calm but slightly defensive. The inference hung between them, and Sarah felt the need to reclaim her narrative. I'm ready to talk, Emily, she asserted, surprising even herself with the clarity of her words. We don't need to talk about this in front of everyone, Emily retorted, a hint of fear lurking beneath her dismissal, but Sarah noted it as an indication of deeper issues lurking within their family dynamic. No, I think we do, Sarah maintained, her voice unwavering, even as a flicker of apprehension snaked through her. She was done avoiding the conversation that had plagued her for so long. What exactly is there to talk about? Her brother Ethan piped up, desperate for the drama that never quite left their family gatherings. Are you going to tell us you're moving in with Jack? The reminder of her previous silence bruised her resolve. Yes, Ethan, and more, she replied. I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. The space in the room contracted, breaths momentarily held. Jack shifted slightly, emboldened by her resolve, and she could sense his silent support urging her on. Do you understand how reckless this is? Emily shot back, her voice rising defensively. You're putting everything at risk for a fling? It's not a fling, Jack interjected firmly, stepping forward as if shielding her from the impending storm. This is real for both of us. Sarah deserves to be happy. His words ignited a simmering resentment in the room. Happy? Is that what you call it when you disregard everything that matters? Emily's tone dripped with disbelief. But what about what you want? Jack replied, his patience thinning as he challenged her. Sarah felt a tension building, not only in the space but within her own heart. The battle was no longer just about Jack and herself. It encompassed familial loyalty, unspoken expectations, and the scars left by years of conformity. Suddenly, she felt a jolt of clarity. "I've been living my life according to your expectations, and I don't want to do it anymore," she declared, each word a stake driven into the ground of her newfound reality. "What about Mom? What about Dad?" Emily's voice trembled slightly, but she refused to cower. "They won't understand." "Maybe they don't have to understand," Sarah pressed, the realization crystallizing in her mind. "I have to live for me." The silence that followed was deafening, leaving a fragile, almost electric atmosphere hanging in the room. Each family member absorbed her declaration in differing shades of disbelief or anger. She could feel their judgments radiating like heat off a sidewalk. This confrontation was only the first round in a series of negotiations for her future. Jack's hand slid into hers, a gentle reminder of the support that fortified her newfound strength. "Are you truly ready for this, Sarah?" he whispered, concern lacing his tone. "Yes," she affirmed, the question now prompting an inner reflection instead of doubt. Her decision was solid, firm like a lighthouse against the crashing waves of expectation. The moment felt pivotal, transformative. Concord could not exist while she sought her individual truth. As she tucked away the worry of familial turmoil, she also recognized a potential fracture in relationships long taken for granted. But how much would she actually lose to find herself? The next words forever lodged in her throat felt like a knife poised on a ledge. The time would come to nuance this change with her family, but for now, all she could consider was the forthcoming confrontation. As Jack took a gentle step closer, an unexpected surge of fear gripped her heart. Where would this tumultuous path lead? Would she have to choose between love and blood? Suddenly, a uniformed figure entered the living room, diverting her attention away from the pressing tension. A stranger, yet familiar. How would this new presence affect her unfolding narrative? The stranger stood at the threshold, casually holding a clipboard, the crisp white uniform contrasting sharply with the warm tones of their family home. As the murmured conversations around the room faded to a hush, Sarah's pulse quickened. The uniform wasn't just a detail. It signaled a reality she had been carefully designing, a notion embedded deep in thoughts of beginnings, endings, and everything chaotic in between. "Can I help you?" Emily asked, her skepticism now painted in bold strokes across her face. The stranger glanced between the two sisters briefly, a flicker of recognition passing before he addressed the entire group. "Good evening. I'm Officer Blake. I was just finishing up my rounds when I received a peculiar call about a potential disturbance. Is everything all right here?" With this inquiry, ambiguity washed over Sarah, a mix of fear and disbelief coursing through her. Had someone seen her arguing with Jack? What fresh complications would arrive on the heels of her desire to find clarity? A dismissive wave from Ethan gave assurance that he was more curious about the officer's intent than truly concerned for their family's reputation. "Peculiar, huh? You didn't hear the shouting?" He chuckled. A sharp inhale from Sarah broke her thoughts. It wasn't just Emily's judgment she had to fear. She was now managing perceptions outside of their family, too. "We're fine," she said, instinctively stepping forward, the weight of everyone's gaze heavier than before. "Just a family discussion, that's all." Each word felt like an excuse, barely veiling the chasm that had widened within her. "Sure about that?" The officer's eyes softened as they lingered on Sarah. There was an encouraging nod, a signal that he understood, that behind the surface, there was a deeper struggle at play. "We're just trying to sort through some things," Sarah added, her voice steadier, more deliberate. In that crowded room, the officer was a stranger, yet she sensed an innate understanding, as if he could read the turmoil she couldn't quite articulate. As laughter resumed in the background, a shared moment of levity was interrupted by Emily's probing gaze. "Well, if we're having a family discussion, perhaps you could excuse us, officer?" "Of course, just wanted to make sure you were safe," he replied, a hint of warmth behind his authoritative demeanor. But before he turned to leave, he paused. "You know, sometimes it takes talking to someone outside of the situation to bring clarity. Just a thought." His casual suggestion, though well-meaning, struck a chord within Sarah. Could she find the clarity she sought by peeling back layers of her own constructed identity? The revelation felt like an invitation wrapped in courage, igniting the embers of her desire for true independence. "Thank you," she managed in an evenly measured tone, a growing determination blooming within her that shattered the uncertainty surrounding her family ties. This was more than just stepping up to family scrutiny. It was a path to rediscovering her essence, stripped of expectations, but tied intricately to her choices. Jack's comforting presence regained its strength as they exchanged fleeting glances, an understanding passed between them that felt both camaraderie and resolve. Once alone, the discussions from her family emerged anew. The words and judgments no longer felt like chains. Instead, they appeared as stepping stones. "What was it that you wanted to say?" Jack asked, a tone of eagerness blending with trepidation present in his voice. "I think I need to look outward, maybe speak to someone who can help me figure this out." A decision solidified in her mind, but the responsibility to confront her family lingered. "What do you mean?" His question wasn't just about the spoken words. It masked an underlying worry that rummaged through his thoughts. "I think it's time to reach beyond this, beyond them. I need perspectives outside this bubble." With each assertion, Sarah felt a clarifying tension release within her. The need to confront the uncomfortable lay ahead, but her willingness to explore deeper truths was cementing new ground, a foundation where she could begin to dismantle and rebuild herself. As she gazed around at her family, the air acrimonious yet charged, the brimming chaos seemed less daunting, softened by her resolve. But would her family ever grasp her need for exploration without attaching guilt to her decision? With the echoes of her declaration pulsating through her, she realized this was no simple task. How would she reconcile her desire for authenticity against the legacy of familial obligation? And just as that thought settled, the tension revived, a quiet yet pervasive moment that stilled her heart. Moving forward would demand unearthing truths she had buried deep within. But who would she become as she stepped outside this fragile fortress? Standing in the dim light of the living room, Sarah felt the slight buzz of adrenaline course through her veins. This was the moment she had anticipated, a crescendo building from the muted clamor of her family's expectations to the urging ignition of self-awareness. The shadows on the wall seemed to pulse with her newfound resolve, shifting shapes as if protesting her emergence from the cocoon of her former self. Jack, still close by, observed her with an intensity that both sparked warmth and heightened her uncertainty. His expression revealed a flurry of emotions, admiration, concern, and an unspoken question hanging in the air between them. She had set a course towards the unknown, but would he come with her? "Are you sure this is what you want?" he finally voiced, his tone brimming with quiet support, yet tinged with apprehension. "I have to try," she responded, her voice quieter now, steady but underlined with the weight of impending confrontation. She thought back to Officer Blake's words, the encouragement to seek clarity emerging from outside influences. "If I don't explore who I am beyond this," she gestured around at the familial chaos, "I might lose myself completely." Jack nodded, a mixture of pride and worry flickering across his face. "Then let's find someone," he suggested, offering a gentle smile that reminded her of their collective strength. Together they would navigate this chasm she was poised to leap into, uncertain yet compelling. As she leaned into this budding alliance, an old worry slithered within her. Seeking help meant unraveling narratives she had long woven tightly. Would her family understand her motivations? The thought of revealing her vulnerability to an outsider filled her with a dual sense of dread and excitement. Like clockwork, the thought of their reactions flooded her mind in vivid colors. Emily's disbelief, Ethan's derision, and her parents' silent disappointment. She had hidden her struggles well, masking them under layers of familial loyalty. But as she reflected on her decision, she felt the tension of their expectations clash against her emerging self, each pulse urging her to push through the discomfort. With a renewed sense of purpose, she reached for her phone. The decision to call someone, a therapist perhaps, felt monumental, yet liberating. It was time to bridge the gap between the inner vigilance she wore like armor and the raw honesty that lay just beneath the surface. "Who are you thinking?" Jack asked, leaning closer, curiosity piquing as he caught sight of the determination brewing in her eyes. "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted, glancing at the screen. "But I know I need someone objective, someone who can help me sift through this mess without any judgment." As they delved further into the logistics, searching online, scrolling through profiles of potential therapists, every click felt like peeling back layers of a tightly wrapped gift. The focus on personal growth ignited a flicker of excitement within her. Perhaps unraveling these bundles of expectation was exactly what she needed to reclaim her narrative. Jack reached out, brushing his fingers over her arm, which caused her heart to flutter with an unexpected sense of belonging. "I'll be here for you," he assured her, grounding her spiraling thoughts. That small gesture, combined with his unwavering stance, fortified her resolve. It felt like embrace from a corner of the world she had retreated from, now gradually inviting her back. As she pressed the call button, anticipation tightened within her. The brief silence before the ringing sounded louder than 1,000 voices. Would this be the catalyst for change she had been searching for? Yet even as the anticipation built, another thought wrapped itself around her awareness. What would it mean to genuinely reshape her reality without her family's implicit approval or understanding? The unease was palpable, but it was overshadowed by a growing ambition to tackle the very fears that had shadowed her existence. A voice on the other end answered, friendly yet professional, pulling her into a new realm of possibility. There was no going back now. Each moment in her past had drawn her closer to this pivotal shift. The waiting room of therapeutic exploration beckoned her forward. But as she began to speak, a familiar tension echoed in the corridors of her mind. Would shedding her predisposed identity, the roles she had played for years, also mean confronting the very essence of who she thought she had to be? As that question loomed large, resonating with vulnerability, she realized the journey ahead demanded more than she anticipated. It called for an interrogation of everything she held dear, questioning her family's influence and its impact on her burgeoning independence. What truths lay hidden in this inquiry, waiting for her to expose? Each answer could transform her path, inevitably leading to confrontation not just with her family, but with herself. With courage swelling within, she took a deep breath, ready to step forward into the vast, daunting landscape of self-discovery, an arena where she would ultimately face what she feared most, the shadow of her own identity. And just as she steeled herself for the unfolding revelations, an unexpected thought flashed through her mind. What if confronting her past was only the beginning of uncovering untapped potential she had long overlooked? The vibrant voice on the other end of the line broke through the haze of Sarah's thoughts, pulling her away from the edge of uncertainty. A brief exchange of greetings unfolded, and the therapist's calm demeanor sent a wave of relief washing over her. This was it, Sarah thought, her first step towards reclaiming her narrative. As the conversation deepened, she felt a tangle of emotions surfacing, each requiring its moment in the spotlight. The therapist's questions prompted her to articulate feelings she had buried for so long. What did she want? Who was she beyond the roles prescribed by her family? "I want to figure out who I am without their expectations weighing me down." Sarah's voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on. Each word felt like peeling back the layers of a deeply entrenched identity crafted by others. A facade of daughter, sister, and friend, a mask she often wore without question. The therapist listened intently, allowing her the space to explore, to expand upon the complexity of her upbringing. She found herself recounting moments that reflected her family's dynamics, the laughter that turned into criticism, the achievements shadowed by doubt, and how love often felt conditional, nestled under the weight of high expectations. Sarah felt herself drifting into a new awareness, each revelation crystallizing like artwork emerging from the chaos of her past. "Your experiences sound difficult," the therapist said gently. "Have you ever considered how that has shaped your view of yourself and your capabilities?" The question lodged itself deep within her. Had she ever truly assessed how her family's influence colored her self-perception? The thought spiraled within her, each twist revealing additional layers, the limiting beliefs, the fear of potential rejection, the chase for validation, all of it merging into a tangled web of identity. "I've always been the supportive one," Sarah confessed, "caring for others even when it drained me. I thought that's what being a good daughter meant, putting my dreams aside. But now, it feels like I'm losing myself." The lament hung in the air, pregnant with a realization that began to bloom within her. Each tiny heartbreak she had quietly stored away was a piece of the potential she had set aside. The clarity was jarring. How had she allowed herself to fade into the background of her own life? As the session unfolded, she began to recognize the personal strengths embedded in her narrative. Rather than merely being the caretaker, she had also been resilient. She had navigated conflict and maintained relationships, skills that could be leveraged into personal empowerment. But acknowledgement alone was insufficient. Her next steps would require courage, a conscious choice to prioritize her aspirations. "Let's explore what it means to live authentically," the therapist suggested, prompting her to envision a life unshackled from those familial expectations. In that moment, Sarah felt a rekindling of hope. Perhaps authenticity wasn't a distant concept. It could be molded through her actions and decisions. With newfound determination coursing through her veins, the session drew to a close. As she ended the call, a sense of exhilaration and trepidation enveloped her. The path ahead was littered with uncertainty and daunting choices. But now, equipped with the realization that her focus was valid, she felt poised to confront the complex emotions and reactions from her family. Jack's supportive presence surged to the forefront of her mind again. If she were to embark on this journey of self-discovery, she knew his partnership would be vital. Yet, a tightening in her chest reminded her of the potential fallout. What if her newfound ambitions and decisions ignited friction with her family's perception of her? A voice of doubt attempted to sabotage her growing initiative. What if she disappointed those she held dear? The weight of familial expectation pressed down harder. That thought spiraled into another. What if their reaction revealed more about her family than about her? Standing alone in her living room, Sarah fought against the crippling sensations of self-doubt. Courage had brought her to this threshold. She needed to step further into the chasm, without knowing the depths she might ultimately expose. As a plan began to form, she felt the pull towards authenticity against the backdrop of an impending confrontation. With a mix of exhilaration and fear, she knew the real test was yet to come. Would she find the strength to redefine her identity without losing the connections that had shaped her? But then a convoluted thought flicked through her mind like a spark. If everything changed, who would she become? Would this journey take her further from the love she craved, or would it lead her to a deeper understanding of it? As she pondered these questions, she felt the ground beneath her shift. The moment was loaded with potential. Perhaps it wasn't just about discovering her true self, but also about navigating the splintered relationships that had become her norm. Could she balance self-assertion and familial loyalty? As she mentally charted her next moves, her heart raced with anticipation. Would she find ways to weave both authenticity and connection, or would one ultimately overshadow the other? The boundaries of her life were shifting, and she stood ready to confront the unknown ahead. The real journey was just beginning. Would she emerge triumphant or forever altered? As the morning light filtered through her curtains, painting the room in soft shades of orange and gold, Sarah took a moment to breathe deeply. Today was the day she would share her newfound resolve with Jack. She had spent the night reflecting on their relationship, pondering how much of it had been built on her adherence to the roles that had constrained her so tightly. It was time to renegotiate their boundaries and step into the fullness of her identity. The previous night's stirrings had ignited a restless determination within her. She could no longer afford to drift through life as an actor in her own story. It was time for the curtain to rise on a real performance. But the fear of how Jack would respond gnawed at her resolve. Would he welcome this authentic version of her, or recoil from the shadows of her past? What if he too had grown comfortable with the version of her who always put everyone else first? Standing in front of the mirror, Sarah practiced the words that danced just beyond her grasp. "I need you to see me for me," echoed in her mind, a soft mantra to prepare her for the moment. She wanted to embody confidence, to demonstrate the strength she had begun to uncover. But the specter of doubt lurked behind every sentence, whispering potential failures into her ear. What if the conversation spiraled into an unbridgeable chasm? With a steeled resolve, she dressed carefully, choosing an ensemble that felt like a statement of self-affirmation. A vibrant red blouse, paired with tailored jeans. She flipped her hair absent-mindedly, catching a glimpse of someone who was ready to confront the world. The world, however, included Jack, and that was where her composure began to tatter. The clock ticked ominously as she glanced at her phone. Jack would arrive soon to pick her up for their planned lunch. It felt surreal how this one meal could hold the weight of her intentions, a definitive pivot in their relationship. Would her need for authenticity overshadow the love they had built together? As she waited, the air in the room grew heavier with anticipation, underscoring the intricate web of emotions she was about to unravel. The echoes of her therapist's words reverberated through her mind. Authenticity is a brave choice. When the doorbell rang, her heart raced. Sarah opened the door to find Jack standing there, a warm smile illuminating his face. He wrapped her in a comforting hug, but as she nestled into his embrace, she felt an unsettling mixture of comfort and dread. They exchanged pleasantries, but the usual rhythm of their banter felt off, as if the air had thickened. They settled into their seats at a cozy cafe, the ambiance rich with laughter and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Jack looked relaxed, unaware of the tension shifting through Sarah's core. She noticed his eyes sparking with affection, their shared history glimmering in the casual conversation. But as laughter bubbled up, the weight of unspoken truth settled heavily upon her. "Sarah, is something on your mind?" Jack's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, grounding her momentarily. The concern in his tone was palpable, urging her to lean into her truth. Swallowing hard, she prepared to break the silence that had been haunting her. "There's something I need to talk about. Something important," she began, her voice hesitant but steady, like a ship navigating choppy waters. Jack leaned in, attentive. "You know you can tell me anything." The words tumbled out like a rising tide, her desires, her struggles, the need for authenticity, each sentence increasingly precarious, testing the intimacy of their connection. As she spoke, his expression shifted, and she searched for understanding in his soulful gaze. Would this revelation fortify their bond, or send it crashing into the depths of uncertainty? As Sarah narrated her journey towards reclaiming her identity, she noticed an array of expressions crossing Jack's face. Surprise, concern, curiosity. Navigating through the rocky terrain of her family expectations painted a picture of vulnerability that felt raw but necessary. Would he be the support she needed, or would the revelation create a rift they couldn't mend? The air felt electric with anticipation as Sarah took a pause, waiting for Jack's reaction. Her heart beat erratically. She had opened a door that couldn't be closed. His response would be the pivotal moment in her journey, a moment that could just as easily define her next steps or lead to a painful unraveling of their relationship. "What do you think about everything I've shared?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, a flicker of apprehension dancing in her chest. Jack looked deep into her eyes, his expression unreadable but charged with emotion. The waiting felt unbearable. Would he shatter her newfound determination or join her on this warpath toward authenticity? As the silence stretched on, the uncertainty of her future loomed like a threatening storm cloud. Would there be acceptance, or the fraying of a bond she had cherished? The truth was, whatever happened next could shape not only her relationship with Jack, but also her understanding of love and self-worth. She braced for the impact of his response and held her breath, ready to face the outcome of her courageous truth. The moment seemed to stretch indefinitely as Sarah searched Jack's face for answers, for some indication of how her words had taken root within him. The cafe buzzed around them, a world apparently untouched by her personal turmoil. She tried to focus on the sounds of laughter, the clinking of cups, but all she could hear was the pulse throbbing in her ears. Finally, Jack drew a breath, his brow furrowed. "I appreciate your honesty, Sarah." His voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent that hinted at deeper questions. "But I want to understand. Why didn't you feel you could tell me this before?" The question slammed into her, a mix of fear and reflection. How could she articulate the years of silence, the weight of expectations? "I thought I might disappoint you," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to tarnish what we have." Jack's expression shifted to something softer, thoughtful remorse blended with compassion. "I don't want you to be anyone other than who you truly are. But we can't move forward if you hide from me." The sincerity in his eyes dimmed her anxiety momentarily, allowing a flicker of hope to ignite within her. His words, while supportive, highlighted how she had constructed walls around her fears, something she had thought was protection, now revealed as an impediment. While battling the urge to pull back, Sarah pressed on. "I've spent so much time trying to be what everyone needs that I lost sight of what I appreciate. I need to rediscover who I am outside of everyone else's expectations." Jack leaned in closer, a signal of the seriousness with which he considered her resolve. "You're not alone in this. I've had my own battles with expectations and identity. But the real question is, what do you want from us, moving forward?" It was a pivotal and terrifying prompt, a fork in the road. She deliberated between vulnerability and the instinct to play it safe. I want us to be real. I want to build something rooted in authenticity, not a fragile facade." The emotion simmering between them transformed. This wasn't about distancing, it was about connection, the raw, unfiltered kind that allows one to stand fully in their own being. She felt the shift, a moment of recognition where they spoke the same language. In a whisper she added, "But I'm scared, Jack. Scared of losing you if this means redefining everything." "I understand," he replied, reaching for her hand, a gesture that anchored her through the swell of uncertainty. The warmth of his touch contrasted sharply with her turbulent thoughts. "Let's redefine it together, step by step. Just be you." His words flowed with a gentle reassurance, and they resonated within her like a cautious promise. Yet the realization hit her, Redefining everything wouldn't lead to an immediate fix or clarity. Instead, it would demand persistence, exploration, and the awkwardness of trial and error. Truly becoming herself and nurturing their connection meant facing uncomfortable truths. What Sarah hadn't anticipated was how her revelation would change her perception of love itself. It became less about holding on to what she thought Jack wanted, and more about forging an honest and audacious space for both of them. But that realization was also fraught with the knowledge that opening up meant risking everything she had built. Just then, Jack leaned back, his expression growing resolute. "You know, this is just the beginning for both of us. Your journey to discover yourself aligns with the path I have yet to fully chart. Together we can dive deeper into understanding about each other and ourselves." Her heart raced as she processed his words. Could this also be the moment where Jack reclaimed parts of himself? Did this mean exposing not just her vulnerabilities, but opening the door for him to do the same? Suddenly a shadow fell across the table, pulling her from her thoughts. A man in a tailored suit stood nearby, surveying the two of them with an inscrutable gaze. His presence was a disruption, causing uncertainty to tingle in Sarah's spine. Who was he? And why did his look seem laden with significance? "Excuse me," he interrupted, looking directly at Jack, "but I believe you have something that belongs to me." The boldness of such an intrusion rattled what felt like fragile ground beneath her feet. Jack's expression momentarily shifted from warmth to caution, a deeper concern settling into his features. What had he been hiding? The moment of truth was no longer confined to her resolve alone. It was just the tip of a much larger iceberg. And for Sarah, it felt like the world was rearranging before her eyes, intertwining her journey of self-discovery with the potential unraveling of Jack's secrets. What awaited them in this new territory was anyone's guess, but uncertainty wrapped tightly around them now as tension thickened the air. As the man stared at Jack, Sarah felt that familiar mix of apprehension and exhilaration bubble within her. The cafe blurred into a background hum, her focus honing in on the tension rippling between the two men. Who was this stranger disrupting their moment, and why did he seem to hold the key to secrets she was only beginning to uncover? "Do I know you?" Jack asked cautiously, eyes narrowing with curiosity but tainted by an underlying hint of anxiety. "Not yet," the man replied with a smirk, his demeanor suggesting he thrived on the power of intrigue. "But I represent a side of your life you seem keen to keep under wraps." Sarah's pulse quickened. The pieces felt jumbled, like a fragmented puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Jack's world was not only different from hers, it was wrapped in layers she had yet to penetrate. "Listen, I don't know what you're talking about," Jack replied, bracing against the tension. It was evident there was more behind that confident facade, but here, in the bright cafe light, every familiarity began to retreat, leaving an unsettling divide. The man looked at Sarah, appraising her as if she were part of the narrative, a character in a plot that had yet to unfold. "She's part of this too," he said, turning back to Jack. "And whether you want her to be or not, she deserves to know." The weight of the insinuation hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud about to burst, sending razor-sharp anxiety through Sarah. Was this stranger aware of her commitment to understanding her truth, or was he here to unravel all that she was beginning to create? "Let's take this outside," Jack suggested, the vibe shifting from anxiety to determination. He paused, looking back at Sarah, who could only offer him a supportive nod, despite the uncertainty tethering her heart to a state of dread. As they exited the cafe, each step felt heavier than the last. Sarah's heart raced as she followed them outside. This confrontation had been displaced from her personal journey to an amalgamation of Jack's hidden truths and her own quest for authenticity. "Do you think you can just walk away from your responsibilities?" the man said as they reached the sidewalk, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. "You can't run from the past." Jack, standing his ground, clenched his fists at his sides. His posture was one of resilience, but also desperation. "I've made my choices." "But those choices affect more than just you, don't they?" The man paused, glancing from Jack to the tremor of Sarah's hand, where she struggled to maintain composure. "You think whatever connection you're forging here is worth losing everything you've built?" Confusion and anger surged up within Sarah. Jack had shared pieces of his life with her, but had he concealed the entirety of it? Would her awakening to authenticity be built on the shattered remnants of someone else's facade? The stakes had never been clearer, and the uncertainty spiraling around her gripped tighter. Taking a breath, Sarah stepped forward. Jack deserves to be who he truly is, just as I'm discovering I do. If you think you can intimidate him into submission, you can't. This isn't just about you or him, it's about us, and whether we can face whatever you're throwing in our path. Jack turned to Sarah, surprise flickering in his eyes, followed by the glimmer of pride. It radiated a warmth she was only beginning to recognize in her own spirit. It felt powerful to confront adversity together, fueling her resolve to remain authentic not just for herself, but for their relationship. The man's expression morphed, dwindling beneath the force of Sarah's honesty. "I see you're determined," he said, an amused glance shifting from her to Jack. "But the truth will come out, and perhaps it's time you were both ready for it." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving an unsettling silence hanging in the air. As Sarah faced Jack, the tumult of emotions coursed between them. Adrenaline surged through her, and she sensed Jack's unease. "What was that all about?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Jack took a step back, eyes a stormy sea of conflicting emotions. "I should have told you before. About my background. It's complicated." The way he hesitated felt like a lifetime of conversation suspended in the balance, yet she saw something else in him too, unanticipated strength. "Then tell me the truth now," she urged, ready to embrace whatever reality came to light, even if it remained tangled with shadows. Sighing deeply, Jack's gaze shifted to the ground. "I'm not just a handyman, Sarah. My family. I come from wealth, and I've worked hard to separate myself from that world. I didn't want to bring that past into our life." Her heart steadied in response. "And this is why you were hesitant to share? Because of who you are, or more likely who the world thinks you should be?" Jack met her gaze, and for the first time in this moment of crisis, sincerity washed over him. "Because of who I thought I had to be, someone free of the riches and expectations that come with it. I thought if I told you you'd turn away. Nobody wants to be tied to a billionaire." "You're wrong," she said. "I want to be with you, whoever that includes, however complicated it might become." The truth of her words hung heavy in the air, unveiling a path of courage she hadn't realized she possessed until now. At that moment, a sense of clarity emerged. They were entwined in a shared journey, no longer simply clinging to surface images. Each of them was grappling with authenticity in ways they hadn't fully understood. Perhaps this unexpected revelation would become the pivot point, not just for their relationship, but for how they navigated life together moving forward. Together they could carve out a reality driven by honesty while dismantling the expectations imposed by their pasts. As they stood united in their truth, a small breakthrough unfurled, a taste of freedom that hinted at the endless possibilities ahead. With every uncertain step they both took, the shadows surrounding their relationship began to recede, revealing a budding intimacy rooted in authentic connection. In a world where assumptions threatened to derail their blossoming love, they stood side by side, a clearer understanding binding them together. Each had their battles, yes, but in relationship they had forged a resilient alliance, one that transformed uncertainty into potential. Sarah realized then that together they would not only confront the challenges ahead, but would also discover an extraordinary confidence poised to redefine their futures, a blending of influences and identities that offered a richer sense of self. And with that realization, the excitement of their journey blossomed anew, one built on not just the embrace of each other's authentic selves, but a powerful tribute to the strength of the connection they were cultivating. Jack may have a past, and Sarah her struggles, but in embracing their truths together, they were overriding the whispers of judgment and expectation with the shouts of identity and love, a story waiting to unfold anew. Only then, with the weight of their vulnerabilities laid bare, did it begin to dawn on them. Perhaps this, above all else, was exactly what they had both needed. As they walked away from the cafe, hand in hand, they took their first steps into a world yet to be defined, a world where love flourished amidst the courageous dance of authenticity. Now was their moment to forge the life they desired, one true to themselves and to each other. It was a beginning that held the promise of joyous exploration, marked by resilience, mutual understanding, and an unwavering commitment to remain authentic, no matter what awaited them. At that moment, as they burst into laughter, embarking into the uncharted territory of their combined futures, a new chapter unfurled before them, limitless and bright, marked with the signature determination of two souls daring to truly be themselves. This was a conclusion but also an invitation, an awakening of dreams and aspirations once stifled by conformity. Sarah and Jack's journey would continue to evolve, and with open hearts, they embraced every intricate step unfolding before them, together. Will you step into your own journey? Will you seek the authenticity of your heart? Take the leap and embrace your truth. Together, we can navigate this unknown. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories, and leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending below, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the significance of supporting the channel through these actions.